Welcome back to the shop. I'm Jason, and today we're working on Black Pearl yet again. We're continuing our maintenance series on this car, where basically I'm getting my grimy little mitts on everything that I can. And I've got a really simple maintenance project for today. Today what we're gonna do is we're gonna be replacing our pre-cat O2 sensors. A lot of people tend to miss these with time as a maintenance item. They just think, well, they last until they fail. While that may be true, what happens is they will get slower and slower and slower in their cycle between lean and rich, which will wind up costing you more money in the long run because you'll wind up using more fuel as that sensor is running slower and slower over time. So while you're not going to get a significant gain in fuel mileage, your fuel efficiency will definitely go up, and you may get a little bit more power back in the motor as it can get a better burn while you're running. We're gonna need a couple of simple tools. We're gonna need an O2 sensor socket, possibly, 22mm wrench, possibly, one or both, or only one of these. Plus we're gonna need our O2 sensors. I'm using a set of Bosch replacement sensors from FCP Euro because of their lifetime guarantee, and these are the same sensors that you would get from BMW, except there'd be a little roundel on there. These ones come pre-coated with a little bit of anti-seize, so I won't need anti-seize today, but if you're buying sensors that don't have the cap with the anti-seize on them already, you're gonna want a little bit of anti-seize to make sure that in the future, should you have to take them out, you can get them out. Because the last thing you want is to completely strip those threads in your exhaust manifold. Let's get the car up in the air and see what we're dealing with. Now, while I say maintenance item, I don't mean on a specific interval. It's gonna be a little bit different depending on the vehicle that you're dealing with, but in reality, you're probably looking at 80 to 100,000 miles that you're gonna wanna replace your O2 sensors. I have a very sneaking suspicion that they've never been replaced on this car, especially given the fact that our fuel filter that should be replaced at every inspection too on this one had never been replaced. This fuel filter is 01-10-01. This is the original fuel filter on this car. You've got to be kidding me. The reason that you replace them is because as the exhaust is leaving the engine, it's before your catalytic converter, so it's gonna have the greatest content of hydrocarbon. Well, those sensors are reading your content of hydrocarbons and oxygen so that it knows how much fuel to put in or take away from the combustion process. Now, because that hydrocarbon is hitting that fresh O2 sensor before the catalytic converter, it tends to build up a little bit over time, thus creating a layer of deposits just like you might have on your intake valves of a direct injection vehicle. Now, that layer is going to slow down its actual operation reading of the exhaust gas flow. So after it passes that O2 sensor, it runs through either, on this car you have a pre-cat and a final cat, or what is a three-stage system split into two, and then it hits your after-cat O2 sensor. That sensor should remain relatively stable throughout its reading range, and that would signify that the catalytic converters are doing their job. Usually you don't replace those after-cat or post-cat O2 sensors on any type of interval. Those ones you definitely replace as they fail because they're not going to affect your mileage or efficiency or power band. Pre-cat, however, will. On this car, our pre-cat sensors are located down below versus up top. Depending on the vehicle, you're gonna have one way or the other. This is a 2002 540 with the M62 TU engine. So we can get to our sensors fairly easily, and they are a short plug, so there's not very far to chase down the other end of this connection. It looks to me like I can even get on this guy and this one with a 22mm wrench. So because my 22 fits, we're gonna go ahead and break it free with this one. A little harder trying to get around the secondary camera. And then we'll follow the sensor up to our connector here, right there. Just pull it apart, should pop apart no problem. Now, try to push your wire up above the sensor to give it somewhere to twist to, or twist it from the bottom down here so that you're not just crinking and crimping those wires. You can see how they're twisting a little bit there at the top. And then when we look at the sensor itself, you can see the deposits on it. Now this sensor is actually in pretty good shape. It's not overly fouled or overly dark, but this car has 170,000+ miles on it. So as a part of my maintenance routine, this is something that I definitely am going to address. Getting our new sensor in is purely just the reverse of what we just did. There it is. You can see how shiny this sensor is on the end there. And this is where all of the gases try to go through those little notches. So the same as removing, we want to try to keep our wires from getting all pinched up. We're just going to make sure that we can get this to rotate in by hand first and rotate our wires as we're tightening it down. And these don't take a significant amount of torque. So what I do is I get them all the way down by hand, and then I'll get my wrench on there or my socket, depending on what's needed. And then I'm going to crush that crush washer or that sealing washer down and in. And I'm going to go about 1/2 to 3/4 of a turn past where it was tight. And with that, we're pretty solid. I'm going to get this other one installed, and then we'll fire it up, make sure that we didn't wind up with any check engine lights. Well, that was a nice, easy project. Sometimes you need those little wins to make towards the bigger project goals. We're getting pretty close here on my list. We're going to go ahead and cover up our Precat O2 sensors. That means our fuel system is just about done. The last thing in my fuel system that I have any questions about would be the injectors. And I'm not sure if I'm going to replace them or if I'm just going to do an injector flush. I have all the equipment to do a proper injector flush, so I think I'm going to go that route. So let's cover the cost here. The sensors were $125, including tax and shipping. And to correct myself from earlier, I ordered them from Turner Motorsports because they were slightly cheaper there than on FCP. Which brings my total up to $82, $89, and 62 cents. Quite a bit of money for my $4,000 project. Coming up in our next video, I've got this Dynon intake tube and filter, 4-inch Turner duct, 4-inch Turner mass airflow holder, and an N62 large throttle body. We're going to try to figure out how to combine all of these things into one intake on this car and see what we come up with. Then we're going to have to figure out a tune at a later date to get all of this stuff working in harmony. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment, do all those fun things, and I'll see you back in the shop soon.